Hey you guys, welcome to book review 28. Now before we get started, I must apologize. I've been kind of sick. If you can hear my voice, I'll probably cough a couple times during this review. But the book I wanted to review today was Lost in Seoul and Other Discoveries on the Korean Peninsula by Michael Stevens. Look right there. As advertised, this is about Michael Stevens and his trips to Korea, specifically South Korea. Obviously, he's not going into North Korea. He's an American who married into a South Korean family, and the book takes place over the course of about 4 to 5 visits, I think, during his time there, and kind of the family situation and his observations on the country, some of the cultural things. But first of all, it always starts with the family. And as much as I liked this approach and as much as I think it's appropriate to Korea, I kind of like doing a little more cultural observation in the public view rather than just in the private sense. Because while I feel that there are good insights in the private sense, and it's certainly not a lie, it's certainly true, these observations, I feel like if you extrapolate private circumstances to the entire country, sometimes you'll get lost. Now, the good thing about Michael, it seems, from my knowledge of Korea, is that he doesn't get lost, is that the things that he sees within his own family are fairly typical of the larger type domestic families within Korea. Well, what else do I have to say about this book? I guess it just sort of covers the kind of, I should say that this book was written in 1988, I want to say, which is very different from modern Korea. I think modern Korea has become much less militarized, much more democratic, and much more just kind of like the West. Now, I mean, that's an exaggeration. The cultural is certainly still there, but you can see in this book sort of the last vestiges of not military rule, but sort of like a state that's always mentally on the brink of war, having to do with the armaments of North Korea. That being said, he's in a time period, 1988, where it was right on that upward curve of the Korean economy. Like Hyundai, Samsung, all those companies. And what you see is, you see a very eclectic mix of ancient tradition and new age consumerism. He talks about, getting lost in some of the shopping malls, or just some of like the material ways that families show their wealth. But also, he shows it in a way that how this materialism, and it's not completely materialistic, but that side of the culture reinforces sort of the hierarchy of where you are in the society. Be you rich, or poor, or whatever, but just kind of like where you are. Now, I should say also that this book is very the family he married into was a very well-to-do family within Korea. So while he has observations on some of like the housemaids and like some of the poor people within society, the world that he's interacting in is the bourgeoisie world, or is the that might be a little strong, but is the upper crust of the society. house that they live in, this family, the Han is the name of the family. They say he changed the name, but he uses Han in the book. This Han family, their residence is located right next to the Prime Minister's residence within South Korea, so, a very auspicious site. Well, I guess there's so many characters that are mentioned in this book. I can't remember all of them, be it the strong-willed mother-in-law, mother of his wife, who is fair and kind, but also just very kind of, who it sort of reminds me of is the upper crust version of the mother in Kung Fu Hustle, the movie Kung Fu Hustle. Is very kind of, really, not angry, but just kind of has all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed and all the punctuation correct on the way that the way that their family works. And you have like the gregarious uncle who's not really an uncle, but just sort of was brought into the family because of what he did for Michael's wife's dad. So Michael's wife's dad, or maybe his grandfather, is dead. He died in the Korean War. But this man helped that guy out in the war, so he's brought into the family. Or just sort of like the youngins that kind of have a glossy look in their eye and see all this stuff that's happening around them, but don't know what to make of it yet. He mentions them in the book. But the one that I really like to get to is Grandma O, who is the cantankerous, cursing, even beyond what you would consider the realm of, Koreans are known as being very polite. Well, I should say Asian culture is known as being very polite, but actually Korean culture is known as being very straightforward, which is, polite in one way, but also just very sort of to the point. And most of the time, if it's to the point and polite, those can interact. But if you have somebody that is very cantankerous, then they're not and they're to the point and they're not going to hide that. Then you really have sort of a conflict between the cantankerous side and the side that tells them to be polite. So this Grandma O is very cantankerous. It's very curmudgeonly. It's very, she curses a lot, smokes too much, even though she has lung cancer, which is mentioned multiple times in the book. But because of the way Koreans see elder people, she's not put in a nursing home and put off to the side, but is revered, and is sort of a kind of a comedic anecdote throughout the book of this person that's very looked up to and looked to for wisdom, and she's kind of like, "Oh, you terrible kids, why'd you just F off or something?" But by the end of the book, she dies. Now, there was one thing that I forgot to mention. I'm going to say, all these people, I'm going to talk about religion real fast, and then we're going to get back to Grandma O. We're going like this. I haven't got this all worked out, so we're going to go in like this. Okay, so religion. Religion is sort of on the decline with the rise in consumerism, as you would expect, but is still held much more strongly than a number of Western, European countries or even parts of America. But what's interesting is the blend of religions. And this is all eventually going to lead into Grandma O's death and the ceremony. Okay, geez. you sort of have consumerism, ancient religion like Buddhism, Taoism, and shamanism. And what they always say is when things are going good, you're consumerist. When things are celebratory, so not just good but celebratory, you're a Taoist. When someone dies or someone's in mourning, you're a Buddhist. But when all else fails, when everything goes to shit, that's when you're a animist, or like the ancient religions. He actually goes to a shaman, a female shaman, shamaness, yeah, with some of the members of his family. And she gets wild. It's like crazy. She's like rattling stuff around and going all nuts. But anyway, the reason that I bring that up is just sort of an observation on those three, I guess you'd say, in their place within Korean culture. But also this sort of played out in the end when Grandma O died. Now they didn't do, actually I think they did do a few Buddhist things, but they didn't hold it at a Buddhist temple. Rather, where they buried them was not in Seoul. You can see Lost in Seoul, which is where the majority of the book takes place in this urban environment. But at the end of the book, they go out to their old homeland, or their old country estate, which they no longer own. They have sold, but because land ties are so strong in Korea, even though they no longer own the land, it's still viewed as their heritage to visit the land every so often, and if someone dies, to bury them on this land. So they go, and it's the entire book is kind of cerebral, but what observatory, and certainly I haven't included everything. I don't know really what to say. Like the time he gets lost in the barber shop, or various vegetable markets, or I don't know. It's just like I said at the beginning of this, with the family, it's very contextual, so it's hard to point like to a singular object thing and say this is it, but rather sort of relies upon the web of the context of the characters in the book to kind of develop, and you get to know them over the course of the book. Okay, so back to this grandma. They go out, and in the pouring rain in the middle of summertime, people dressed in their finest, I don't know if they're not kimonos, but whatever the historical dress of Korea is. Long line through sloppy mud, but people don't complain because they know that this is something that must be done for their grandma, and to complain would be just out of bounds. And he kind of hangs back a little bit. And as they're walking through these cow pastures and rolling fields with occasional trees, rain coming down, not super hard, but just very sort of like heavy rain, not violent rain, but just kind of heavy rain. He sees all these red dresses against the lush green landscape as they walk towards the back of this large agrarian property to go to the gravesite to bury Grandma O. And it was just a very scenic picture of these people, and not just scenic for scenic's sake, but scenic in that it really sort of paints the portrait of these people that was established earlier in this book. It was just sort of a really memorable moment. Now that's only the end of the book, and I guess you'd have to read it yourself to find all the other details throughout it. But I would recommend it. So I know I'm getting a little long. Lost in Seoul and Other Discoveries on the Korean Peninsula by Michael Stevens. All right, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Or see you around when I do this next book review.